Hey, what's up, guys? So last week we spent some time watching videos on different types of plants and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. And I wanted to take this time to kind of clarify things a little bit for you to make it a little bit easier for you guys to understand exactly what I want you guys to know. You'll notice that I'm using my whiteboard up here, which is going to actually work out great because what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down each group of plants and we'll just get a few specific things about each one. You're going to want to have a piece of notebook paper and a pencil so that you guys can go ahead and copy this stuff down. Hopefully it will help you guys clarify up just a little bit what I was trying to talk about. Okay, so let's start out by understanding that plants are made up of mainly two different groups or two different categories of those things. The first group we have are the non-vascular. And the easiest way to remember non-vascular is that non-vascular do not or have no tubes. Okay, so that's something that we got to remember, guys. Plants have tubes because they're helping to move things up and down that plant so that they can use them. This particular group of plants, they don't have those. Okay, so what they're going to do is, in order to get some of the things that they need, they're going to actually use the process of diffusion and osmosis to move those things from one spot to the next. And usually that's done from one cell to another cell. When we talk about non-vascular plants, we know that they're going to be very small. I know I covered this last week on the chart that we did, the top hat that we did with the vascular and non-vascular, but I feel it's important to touch on this again because the other group that we're going to talk about in a minute, the vascular plants, that's going to take us a lot longer to get through. Okay, and then for examples here, guys, as far as non-vascular plants go, right here, mosses are probably going to be the best example I can give you. There are other ones, liverworts and hornworts are other examples. But guys, this is probably the easiest one to remember. So that's just kind of a brief rundown. Not a lot that you're going to need to know about this particular group. What we're going to really focus on is we're going to focus on the other group a little bit more. I'm going to move you over here a little bit because this is going to take a little bit more. All right, so here we go, guys. I'm going to go ahead and come over here and let's talk about this next group of plants. And the vascular plants are a tremendously varied group of varied group of plants. And you heard a lot of terms last week: monocot, dicot, angiosperm, gymnosperm. They all relate back to this particular group. Okay, so let's just get a few things first. First thing we need to remember, guys, is that these are plants that do have tubes. And in particular, the tubes that we are talking about are going to be two things called xylem and phloem. And wow, can't spell today, Mr. Collison. Holy cow. It's definitely been a long day. Xylem and phloem are the tubes that these plants have, and that's how things get moved up and down that particular that organism. So the way I always remembered it is you xylem up and you phloem down. So if you want to add a little arrow here, that will help you remember that xylem is taking things up from the roots to the top of that plant so it can be used, and phloem is taking things down from the leaves. Mainly it's going to be the food that's being made from the leaves down to the roots so that the plant can actually utilize it. So they have tubes, xylem and phloem, xylem up, phloem down. Okay. We talked a little bit last week about the fact that vascular plants can grow very large. I think I misspoke a little bit. The tallest or largest tree is not actually going to be a sequoia. It's actually a eucalyptus tree. And I believe the tallest one ever recorded was like 389 feet tall or something like that. So almost 400 feet. But guys, that's huge. I mean, think about it. If 10 feet's a story, that's 40 stories basically in height. So these things can grow very large. And I hope last week you guys saw on that video of the sequoia tree that that is true. They are massive things, okay? Last week, I introduced you guys to two different groups or two different categories of these, and those are the angiosperm and the gymnosperm, okay? And angiosperms and gymnosperms, even though they are vascular plants, they are completely different groups of vascular plants, okay? We're gonna spend some time tomorrow working on a diagram of a flower. Flowers fall into this category right here. They are angiosperms, okay? So these are most of the plants that we are familiar with. Your grasses, the trees, many of the trees that we have around here in Devil's Lake, a lot of the shrubs and the flowers that we grow to make our homes look beautiful, houses look beautiful, that kind of stuff. Those fall into this category. The gymnosperms, though, are going to be plants that are evergreens. They are green all year long. So around Devil's Lake here, we've got spruce trees, we've got different types of pine trees. Those are going to be in the gymnosperm category. The easiest way to remember is that angiosperms are going to produce flowers or buds, and gymnosperms are going to produce cones. Okay? Literally, gymnosperm means naked seed. That's because the cones of these things, they actually are going to have the seeds that are just right below the surface, and they're very easy to get to for certain organisms like squirrels and stuff like that. So if you ever see a squirrel sitting on a branch, gnawing on a pine cone, it's trying to get at the seeds that are just inside of it, okay? Great examples of angiosperms. Think about all the fruits that we have, apples, oranges. Those are going to be organisms that fit into this category. And again, these are going to then be your conifers, okay? The other group of things that we talked about were monocot and dicot. Now, that actually is going to fall underneath this category right here of the angiosperms. I'm not going to get too complicated with it because I don't think we're going to need to spend a ton of time. But what I want you guys to remember is mono and di are two prefixes. And basically, they kind of go along with how these plants begin when they sprout. A monocot plant is only going to have one leaf when it sprouts from the soil. A dicot is going to have two. So mono means one, di means two. That's an easy way to remember it. There's a whole bunch of other characteristics that we can talk about with monocots and dicots, but I'm not going to get super detailed on that one, okay? But what I do want you to understand is that monocots and dicots both make up a lot of the foods that we're going to have, a lot of the grains especially. So wheat, oat, flours, stuff that we make into flour, okay? Wheats and the different types of grasses, they're going to fall into these categories. Most of the time, those are going to be the monocot variety. Dicots are also going to be some of those, but that's going to be something a little different. That's almost like more like corn. Or some of the other trees and plants that we might actually utilize for different food sources. But guys, that's really going to be the main thing that I want you guys to take away about monocots and dicots. We use an awful lot of them for our food sources, okay? And that's really what you're really going to take away from that. And that's really all we need to worry about. So my hope was that this would be a little bit clearer for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this up here. That way you guys can pause the video. You can do whatever you need to do. Jot down a few of these things if you haven't got it already. This shouldn't take you that long. You have nothing that you need to turn here into me. Okay, this is just all for your benefit. So you have no reason to turn anything into me for this particular one. But guys, make sure you get some of those notes and stuff down so that it can help you guys when it comes to understanding plants. We're going to come back at you guys a little bit later on this week with another video, and that's going to be when we jump into photosynthesis and start talking about balancing chemical reactions. All right. So in the meantime, guys, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys later.